give everybody a marker, and you're going to be responding to this statement right here. So agree or disagree, no one who works full-time should live in poverty. You're gonna, once I give you a marker, respond on your whiteboard there. Before we start, I give you all two options. Which one of these signs do you think belongs in this red box here? So full-time would correspond, you could just blurt it out, it's fine.
At the bottom one?
This one here?
Yeah.
What do y'all think?
I think it's the top one because it's going to be more than 30 hours.
Greater than 30 hours.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Hopkins is gonna have a hard time, y'all, not getting into this today.
Yeah, I'll keep my mouth shut.
No? It's all good. Okay, so we're gonna go with greater than or equal to. You gotta hit at least, in Colorado, you gotta hit at least 30 hours. What's the top end before you hit overtime?
It's not 40.
40 hours. So over, who said 80? That's okay, over 2 weeks, it'll be 80. Okay? All right, any questions you're wondering about? Okay. Okay, I'm gonna give you one more statement. Hopefully you left a little bit of room on your whiteboard. This is number 2. Wages should be high enough to support a family on one income.
Do we have to write like why we agree or just agree?
You would explain like, I agree with this because. Great question.
I agree. You shouldn't have to, it should have to be if you're working more than 30 hours.
I agree because nobody should have to like struggle for their basic needs.
Well, like 3 hours, even if it's like 30 hours, which you should still be able to use enough. Let's just yourself for around you like your family. Because I feel like you're working that much and you're making these scraps and you're still.
You should still be able to do a full day.
No matter what your education is, some people just can't go to college, so it's not fair
Should
to them.
be, well, it says should be.
Never be
So,
able to not live in poverty.
I don't think they are right now, but they should be because a lot of families have single parent residencies. And it's important to make sure that like, if they have a family, like if they have kids, so just
Why do you agree with that? What's that?
there's only one form of income, they should still be able to survive on that.
I feel like if someone was like trying to work out,
Living wages are
like the mom and the
That's
dad
how it was in the
trying to like
80s.
take care of the kids. I feel like that it should be like that.
For number 2. Okay, let's talk about it for a second. So, number 1, anybody disagree with this? How about, is this true? Is number 1 true?
Not really.
Say more.
Well, it depends on like your hourly wage. Like some places, I know our minimum wage is pretty good, but in some places it's like under $10 an hour.
Okay.
So like if you do 10 times 30, that's times 4, that's $1,200 a month. And like for a crappy apartment, yeah, that could work, but you still have expenses on top of that. So I think you could do it if you really, really tried. But if you were in a state where there's a really, really low minimum wage, it would probably be very difficult.
Okay. Anybody want to add anything to that?
Wait, I thought we were like doing, not if it's possible, but if it should be possible.
Right, but what I gauged was that everybody agrees with this. So, you know, not a ton to talk about there in terms of like debate. But I think the more interesting question is like, is this true? You know, a lot of you think it should be true, right? If you work full time, you should be able to not be in poverty, right? Okay. Alright, what about number 2? Wages should be high enough to support a family on one income. Kari, hit it.
It's a bit iffy for me, because I want to be like, yes, but then again, there's like people that have like I want to see like how do people define family, because like some people would say just like maybe your mom, your father, sister, brother, etc. And some people can branch off to like, oh, my aunts, my uncles, and that can like build up to a lot of people. Then that can be troublesome, because then if you're kind of like, it's like a stepping stone. So like if you have like a big family and you want a wage that's enough to support all of that on one income, it's gonna be nearly impossible and like hard for like say the company, because they also still have expenses to do, and then you have to also manage that to everybody else, and it's just like sometimes you're paying people too much than what's needed that could be used for other people or more for the company. But I want to say, I guess, like the bare minimum, the one income should be enough to support 5 people at the minimum, because I feel like if it's 5 people, that's a good even on one income. That's can be you, your wife, or whatever you guys are like want to marry, your children, and depending on how many children have, and like maybe a pet or something, or that can be used to save up.
Charlie?
Like I agree with that. I think it like the point that you were making was like it depends on how big the family is. I agree with that. I think like the better solution would be having the income enough so that it can support like an average size family, and giving resources to people who like if you're a single parent with like 6 kids, then there should just be resources to help you pay for all that.
Everybody agrees with that? Everybody agrees with number 2?
Yeah.
Which one's more true?
One.
I feel like one's more true than
Yeah, neither of them are really true though.
but like one's like more true than 2 is.
Yeah.
Seeing things.
It also depends, cause like, if you're working 30 hours and you're supporting a whole family, then you're living in poverty, but you might not be living in that much poverty if you're just one person supporting yourself.
So you guys are saying that one is much more clearly true. The other is ambiguous because it can be a little bit difficult to understand how big that family is.
Yeah, I mean one isn't really true either though.
Right, so we need to be able to define like what a family is. Is this one, this is the last thing, we'll move on. Number 1, no one who works full-time should live in poverty. Is it becoming more true or less true?
Less true.
I would say less true. Over.
Alright, hold on, I heard from you.
Should.
Eli, you said less true?
Yeah,
Why do you say that?
because homes and apartments are getting really, really expensive right now because of inflation. So they got rent. So they have rent coming up, you know, and like 30 hours. It's a full-time job, but it's not quite enough to make an inflating rent on minimum wage.
Anybody else?
Living spaces are continually increasing in cost without the wages rising to compensate for that.
Okay. Do y'all have any data other than just housing is more expensive now, Charlie?
There is data that is saying that it is harder to buy a house now than it was in the Great Depression.
The Great Depression? Okay, gotcha.
Like it's harder to buy a house now than it was in the Great Depression.
Okay. Alright, we're gonna shift a little bit, y'all. Thanks for your thoughts. Very thoughtful. I can see the gears turning in there. I wanna remind you, we have like a very simple community agreement. I mean, it's something we're all committed to today. We're gonna think before we speak when we're talking about what? Raise for class, right? Okay, doesn't mean don't talk, but just be careful. Okay, so what we're gonna be dealing with today, y'all, is algebra. And it's gonna feel like a little bit of a, it's gonna feel a little bit before where y'all are at now, which is what have y'all been studying this week with Mr. Hopkins? What's it called?
Graphing inequalities, I think.
Okay, inequalities. Y'all been working on the graphing of. There you go.
That made me so happy.
You're making
Thank
Mr.
you for
Hopkins
remembering.
smile on a Friday. So we're gonna do a little bit of precursor stuff, but if you're getting through it, you will have a chance to get to the concept of inequalities today. Okay, so what we're gonna do is, by the way, y'all know where algebra comes from, the word? You ever thought about that? Algebra? What language do you think algebra is?
Latin, Greek.
We're really testing Mr. Hopkins. Like he is just.
I'm
Y'all know that
chuckling.
meme where the guy, his face is just like.
Where is the news network Al Jazeera based out of? What region of the world? Isn't that Al Jazeera kind of sound like algebra?
Okay, so we'll come back to that. We can think about like what language or like what part of the world that it came from. I will tell you it's very, very old. We're talking about the 800s. So very, very many years ago. Okay, let's see. Let me ask y'all, okay, I'm gonna take away one marker from each table. Go ahead and erase what you have on the whiteboards. So you're gonna need to talk to your partner. Yes. Come up with an answer together, okay? You ready? I'm gonna ask you a question. I want you to collaborate with your partner and then write something down on a whiteboard. Okay, what do y'all think the federal minimum wages? So we have a minimum wage in Colorado, we have one in Denver. What do you think it is at the federal level? So all of the United States. Okay, chat with your partner, write something down.
I know, like,
I know in California I was raised like 20.
I know in Georgia, like, Georgia's a really minimum, like, a really pretty low minimum wage.
I want to have a bit more.
$12.
Should be a living wage.
Yeah, it's a different minimum wage if you're like, kind of making it. But compared to
Like 9 to 12.
I'll say, probably around like, I would say it's probably good estimates around there.
All right, 10 seconds, you gotta get one down.
On yours, because it's cleaner, it'd be $9 to $12 an hour.
An hour?
Yeah, per hour. Sorry, I should have said that. Okay, hold them up. Hold up the whiteboards. Okay, we got 10 to 15, 750, 9 to 12. Y'all are like doing a range. You didn't want to commit to one number, $8.
Yeah.
Okay. Show and Oliver, y'all are the closest. Y'all are super close to. It is $7.25.
That's sad.
Has not changed in decades. It's been that way for a long time. Okay, go ahead and erase. Next one. Federal minimum wage if you make tips. How much do they, what's the minimum amount that they can pay you if you get tips? And look at your group members, give them a high five. You beefing with Urban? Tell them they're awesome. Herb? Ellen?
Please.
You won't tell Eli.
Please. Please.
Awesome.
Please.
You're on.
You're awesome too.
Oliver, you're awesome.
Oliver,
I feel-
Oliver, you're alright.
I feel the positive vibes. Let's keep that up today. Asher, that's right. We're gonna run into some pretty tough stuff today, so I want you to keep up that, because we're trying to encourage our folks, not bring them down. Y'all know that math can make people feel confused. In some cases, it can make them feel dumb. Okay, that's not what we want. We want positive vibes in here. Okay, so what's gonna happen is each table is going to have a graphic. Take a look at me. Each table will have a graphic. There's a question at the bottom that I want you to talk about with your group members. And then after a minute or so, you're gonna rotate to the next group. So be ready to stand up, move around to the next group. What are you wondering about?
What is it? That's what I want.
What's on the paper?
Yes.
I love that curiosity. Okay, here we go. Let's distribute these out.
So the ones that are a lot like black are just like single bed.
But what? But they still lag behind white
The ones that are less
if we
seem
look on the
like
median.
if you look like
income,
hail
whites
is
are
not
still
anywhere near
the top 20
like the centralized
in
Denver.
Colorado.
It's
Well, they're
way out of
also
the way.
ones with the least amount of poverty rate. But if we look
It's
at
like
the,
how it's like how in Steamboat
median
rent is
income
significantly cheaper for
curves
significantly
in
nicer
blacks,
houses
we can see that they're
I think
much
it might be
lower
because
about
it's
like
four
white
mi-
difference
because it's a
between
4-hour
people
drive away
and
from.
they,
I'm
they
surprised
also
they
have much
wouldn't
higher rates of
Isn't that bad?
different areas.
Well, it's more expensive than college.
I'm not surprised about Palmplero. I'm a little bit surprised about Congress Park though. Not bad.
Is it like accounted for?
Yeah, is inflation accounted for?
Sure, good question. I mean, I don't know that inflation
The ones that are a lot more expensive.
is effectively by so, but I'm glad that you're thinking about that, because that is a factor.
Who
right?
needs to run?
So if like income is not increasing at the rate that inflation is increasing, then that's a problem, right?
Yeah.
Now, y'all, we're gonna be getting into the meat of your task today, and I've been talking a little bit more than I like to, so really it's gonna be y'all up at these vertical whiteboard spaces, collaborating together to try to figure out this problem on your paper, okay? So I've designed a situation that has to do with wages in the Denver metro area, okay? Who feels comfortable reading this first part aloud for us? Thank you, Carter.
Today you will figure out the hourly rate necessary for a family in Denver to afford housing. We will look at real data about hourly wages, the amount of money you make per hour, and the cost of renting each month. The goal is to use mathematics to decide whether or not you think 6 families in Denver metro area are paid fair wages.
Okay, raise your hand if you've heard of living wage before. Okay, who feels like they could explain like very simply what that means? Michelle?
Living wage is the amount of money you need to make, how much your wage needs to be able to not die.
Or be homeless.
Does anybody want to clarify a little bit? Thank you. Charlie?
Like the amount of money that you need to make to comfortably pay rent, pay your bills, and get groceries, and like any other needs like clothes and any other like things that you need.
Okay, so hold on one second, Asher. Is the standard maybe a little bit higher than like not dying?
Yeah.
Can we agree with that? Living wage is like, yeah, living comfortably, that's good, that's a good way of putting it. Asher, go ahead.
I was gonna say it would be your rent, your water bill, your electricity bill, and probably groceries, clothes.
There's a little bit extra left over for expenses.
Yeah, and maybe like not, maybe enough money so where you're not worried about money all the time.
Yeah.
Raise your hand if we want to get there. Not stressed about money all the time. Mr. Hopkins is on board with y'all as well. Okay? Yeah, everybody wants to get to that point, okay? So your task, as a team, you're gonna figure out how many hours each family needs to work to pay rent for the type of apartment you think is best for the family. Okay? Any questions so far?
What are the wages?
I'm gonna give you those in just a minute. You're gonna have cards, okay? Okay, Ollie, will you read that first guideline?
Draw a graph for each family's earnings over time and write an equation for each scenario using the corresponding color for each family.
Okay. Read it one more time.
Draw a graph for each family's earnings over time and write an equation for each scenario using the corresponding color for each family.
Okay. Have y'all seen an equation for wages yet today? Yeah, y'all actually haven't. You didn't make it to that last rotation, but yeah. Don't be too intimidated by the idea of writing an equation. I think it's gonna be simpler than you think. Okay, do not show your card to the rest of the group. You're probably gonna have 2 cards each. You can tell them about it, but I don't want you to just hand it to them. I want you to communicate. That's why I'm doing that, okay? Assume there are how many weeks in a month?
4.
board. Mr. Hopkins and I were talking about this earlier, and he's like, there's 4.3 weeks in a month, Mr. Thrower, and I was like, yes, you're right. However, for simplicity's sake, we're gonna go with just 4.
I use like 4 sig figs actually, but yeah.
We're gonna go with just 4 weeks, okay?
Shouldn't that be fine? That should be one.
We can only be in 3 groups. It's like a small amount of people.
I would prefer.
Kari, for the x-axis, I'm gonna have you switch with show, okay?
Oh, that.
We are gonna.
About 15.
Good question.
I always forget, is the band or
So for one of my cards, it makes about 1,600, or no, about 1,500.
Mister,
Mine,
there's a bunch on the
I'm
board
thinking
over there.
studio too.
How many people are
Well, you can't see the card.
I want
Oh, the purple.
on?
the calculator.
Oh, right. My pen.
Mine is how many people are there? Studio.
Yeah, studio. Mine is 15 an hour, 40 hours a week. One adult. So I did a studio to give them like $13.50 per month spending money, which is probably enough for the bills and maybe. I'm assuming utilities is included in the rent.
Yeah, I have to imagine. I don't think we have.
So then you just got like car payments and the silver doesn't pay $30.
We should probably start putting these up on the board.
Yeah. So.
Also, alright, so I have a family that has 4 people, makes 4,800 a month.
Okay. Okay. So the amount of people and then.
That's out. This is different.
So what do we think?
Shut up.
This is hours.
The scale of.
But yes, 4 people. It's 30 an hour.
Wrong one.
So are we thinking per day or per week? What would make the most sense?
Whatever you want, Carl.
I would be interested in this.
So, should this
So basically that,
Okay, you ready to get your X and Y axis up?
I got it.
Talk with, no, give me swap markers. For this, using a similar scale. Why does the scale make sense or not? What's that? You're looking at the red line? I'm talking about for all of your cards, what scale would make sense over here and what scale makes sense across here. Okay, so you may want to be looking at your card and doing some calculations and communicating about that.
With the time, what's 80 times 15? We need to double check our answer.
80 times 15 is 12 hours.
We're gonna actually.
My brain doesn't work.
I guess so did money.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Kari, I want you to switch the marker with show again.
I forgot my book.
Yep, I want you to think about that scale on the bottom, like what makes the most sense.
Well, yeah.
So you're gonna start at.
Okay. So here's an example.
Yeah, independent variable just means it's not affecting the other things going on. Time is just independent.
How much time do you want? So this is what?
Let's give him,
What are we talking about in terms of like days, weeks, months?
we're talking about, hours worth.
Here?
Oh, no, we're talking about, days.
In a day.
You don't have to do it every
So
time. If you do it
you
every
want a week on
yeah.
yours.
So you can say, oh, this
So
one's
you
5,
can't
this
just
one's
use this one,
5,
but you can
Have it be weeks instead of.
hours, but what scale, what, it wouldn't make sense to do 1, 2, 3, 4, what would make sense?
105.
How many hours are you gonna work in a week?
40. That's the maximum. 40.
So what do you want each?
10. Eli, the X.
Maybe 5?
Let's do
That
5.
makes sense?
Eli, put 5, count by 5s in the X.
I'm gonna have Eli switch out markers, switch in his lanes.
And then you add the.
Keep going.
I mean, they don't start.
What is minimum wage?
Start at 0 and then immediately go up to that.
She'll be the one.
11 per hour. Okay, 11 per hour.
Hold on, I got it. We're gonna line this graph so hard.
So it's like right there is where we're trying to line it up.
I'm just gonna go get rid of a meter stick.
That works.
That's why, because
8 hours?
it works.
8 hours.
We lined it, let's go.
So what do you think?
I revere. No, revere.
This graph will
I have reverence for her because I think she's lovely.
Yeah.
So, if we make
It's like what
$200,
Thank you.
40 hours, how many do
You're
we
telling me about. You're telling me about. Change. This doesn't change.
Oh, it's gonna be. You got this right, right?
I've learned to go down. After 4 weeks. That's not right.
So you're supposed to be graphing the amount of money they're making, right?
$10 an hour.
Yeah, it would go up.
No, think about it this way. If you work 0 hours, how much money have you made? So wouldn't it start here?
I don't want to talk about
So it starts here. After 5 hours, how much you making per hour?
Add those two together.
$50 an hour.
And then we can keep going, 20, 30, right? So, what equation
It's
would
gonna be
you
a
like?
pretty, so let's look at that's an easy one to figure out. So after 15 hours, you're a little over 200.
Well, I did not use
And
my
that's 35 here.
And what letter would you
Yeah,
use?
so 40, so after 40 hours, you're gonna be exactly 600.
That is in there, right? Let's do this.
After 40 hours, it's $600.
What kind of makes this one like a little bit more
There you
complicated?
go.
Make $600 in a work week, but the
So,
skeleton.
And then
here,
after
look
80
back
hours,
for a second.
Make it 100.
So this is tips or no tips?
So what do I do with this information?
so 80's right here,
Oh,
right?
Not lined up.
No tips. This one's very simple. This is 10x.
Yeah, well, that's the point.
So, this probably isn't for a tipped employee. Do you think minus 50, 10x minus 50 is for a tipped?
We're so intelligent.
So smart
Does
with
anything
all
go
I
up
think
to
we're gonna start
$1,100
with
a week?
negative money.
No.
But what could ours look like?
Here, look,
They make some money.
my guy in a 40-hour
I
work
mean, it is cheap.
600. So I split that in half.
They make so
And the
much
20-hour work
money.
week came in 300.
They don't make so much money. They make.
So we did not get as far as I wanted to today. That's not y'all's fault. So what took like quite a bit of time at the beginning?
So I want to say understanding, because I know for our group was for x-axis, seeing if it should be off of hours or weeks.
Okay.
And just reading back at it, going back and just seeing, reading the question and seeing the graph they gave us,
Okay.
which helped realize it was supposed to be hours.
Okay. So seeing an example of it was helpful.
Yep.
What else was hard about? So once you figured out hours or time on the x-axis, dollars on the y-axis, what was sort of the next obstacle that you had to figure out?
Like scaling the actual numbers so that it fit every situation.
Right. And what does that require that you do?
Math.
Sort of like figure out. So it's you have to kind of figure out how much every every color makes per like a week or whatever unit you're going by, and it takes a lot of communication, and not everyone can work in the same place, so it takes some helping.
Okay, some
for
communication.
someone.
I like that word, helping. That's very good. Where do you think that we're headed once we were to get all 6 of these lines on the graph? What do you think it would reveal to us?
Racism.
Probably.
Equality, we can call it, but yeah.
Say more about that. Why do you say that?
Because typically minorities are paid less.
Is there any evidence of that in your situations on your cards?
Oh yeah, there is.
What did you figure out?
One of my cards, one card that I almost saw, I was a black woman, just a single one, and it said that the men would be paid a bit more, like 65% more than the woman would.
For Latino and black people were paid minimum wage as well as the white families were paid more than minimum wage.
Do y'all believe that statistic that a black woman makes 65% of what a white man makes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought in Colorado, women made 80 cents to the dollar.
But what's intersecting there? So we have a woman, which is, you're right, and that stat is probably true. What's the other factor that's intersecting there? Race, right? We have two things going on there that would mean that she would make less. How does that make you feel?
Bad. I hate it, but what can you do about it besides try to change it?
Jinx.
It makes you want to change it?
Yeah.
Yep.
We can.
You can change it?
I mean, probably.
I'll try, but that's the best I can do.
I personally will go to the White House.
It's at the level that we should. Okay.
Make a law